It was a sweltering afternoon in Ouagadougou in May 2025 when Ibrahim Traoré was reviewing rural development projects in his office at 36. The president of Burkina Faso had become an internationally respected figure after his previous diplomatic clashes. His phone rang. It was Moussa Kababori, his communications advisor. His voice raised. "Mr. President, something serious has just happened. Trump made direct statements about you during a White House press conference." Ibrahim frowned. "What exactly?" "Did he say, Moussa?" "He said, and I quote verbatim, Ibrahim Traoré needs to learn to put himself in his place. Africa does not rule the United States. This kid needs a lesson in humility." Silence fell over the office. Ibrahim had developed a respectful, if strained, relationship with the U.S. government in recent months, but Trump's words were deliberately provocative and disrespectful. "Go on," Ibrahim said, his voice calm despite the storm brewing in his thoughts. He also said that small African countries don't dictate to America and that you have forgotten your place in the world. Ibrahim walked to the window, looking out over the bustling streets of his capital. Burkina Faso had prospered under his leadership, but he knew that words like those from Trump could have serious economic and diplomatic consequences. "Call an emergency meeting in 2 hours," Ibrahim said, "and prepare our response. This time it will be different." The presidential palace meeting room was in turmoil. Ibrahim Traoré's ministers were intensely debating how to respond to Trump's provocations. Foreign Minister Dr. Alphonse Ouedraogo pounded his fist on the table. "Mr. President, this is an unacceptable insult. He treats us like colonial subordinates." Ibrahim sat listening attentively to every opinion. His economy minister Fatima Sawato presented worrying figures. "If Trump implements economic sanctions, we could lose 40% of our trade with American companies. This would affect thousands of jobs." Defense Minister Colonel Kassoum Koulibaly had a military view of the situation. "Mr. President, we have to show strength. We cannot accept being publicly humiliated like this." Ibrahim raised his hand for silence. "Gentlemen, I understand your indignation. I am indignant too. But our response cannot be emotional. It has to be strategic." He walked over to the whiteboard, where the map of Burkina Faso was displayed. "Trump wants to provoke us into reacting with anger that would justify any retaliation from him. We will not fall into that trap." Drive. Ouedraogo leaned forward. "So what would be our strategy, President?" Ibrahim smiled for the first time that afternoon. "We will give him a lesson in dignity that the whole world will remember. But this time, we'll use an approach that he will not expect." Yakuba Sawato, his communications advisor, asked, "What kind of approach?" "We will respond on his own turf," Ibrahim said, his eyes shining with determination. "We will go to the United States." In Washington, D.C., Trump was in his Oval Office when his chief of staff hurried in. "Mr. President, we just received a startling report about Ibrahim Traoré." Trump looked up from the documents he was signing. "What's this?" "African kid up to now? He hasn't done anything, sir. He's coming here." "And, what do you mean coming here?" Trump put down his pen. "Interested, Ibrahim Traoré has requested an official meeting with you. He'll be in Washington tomorrow accompanied by a ministerial delegation." Trump laughed out loud. "That kid has some nerve, I'll give him that. But if he thinks he's going to intimidate me in my own home, he's sorely mistaken." Meanwhile, in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim was at the airport preparing to board a flight. His wife Ajara was holding his hand worriedly. "Are you sure about this, Ibrahim? It's too risky to confront Trump on American soil." "That's exactly why I have to go," Ibrahim replied. "He expects me to respond from afar with anger. He doesn't expect me to show up at his doorstep with grace and facts." Moussa Kababret stepped forward with breaking news. "Mr. President, the American media is covering your visit intensely. CNN, Fox News, everyone is speculating about your motives." "Perfect," Ibrahim said. "The more attention, the better. The whole world will see our response." Dr. Ouedraogo, who was also traveling, asked, "What if Trump refuses to receive us?" "Then we will respond in front of the White House," Ibrahim said, climbing aboard the presidential plane. "One way or another, our message will be heard." The plane took off from Ouagadougou toward the United States, carrying not only Ibrahim and his delegation, but the hopes of an entire continent awaiting his response. The Burkina Faso Air Force landed at Dalasso's airport at 10 o'clock a.m. On May 20, 2025, A crowd of journalists awaited the arrival of Ibrahim Traoré. As he stepped off the plane dressed in a smart Navy suit, hundreds of cameras flashed. "President Traoré," shouted CNN's Sarah Johnson. "How will you respond to President Trump's statements?" Ibrahim paused and smiled calmly. "I came here to have a respectful conversation between two leaders. I believe in dialogue, not confrontation." The BBC's James Mitchell managed to ask another question. "Aren't you intimidated?" "By being on American soil, why would I be intimidated?" Ibrahim replied. "I came to represent 22 million Burkinabe. This responsibility gives me all the courage I need." Meanwhile, at the White House, Trump watched Ibrahim's arrival on television. "Look at this guy," he told his aides. "You have to admit he's got style." His national security advisor leaned in. "Mr. President, how do you plan to welcome him? I'm going to show him who's boss in this country." Trump replied with a confident smile. Ibrahim and his delegation were escorted to a hotel in downtown Washington. Outside, hundreds of protesters gathered, some supporting Trump, others showing solidarity with Africa. A group of American college students held signs reading "Respect for Africa" and "Dignity has no borders" at the hotel. Ibrahim gave a brief interview to CNN. President Trey Anderson Cooper asked, "Many Americans are curious about your intentions. What exactly are you here to do?" Ibrahim looked directly into the camera. "Came to remind President Trump and the American people that respect is a two-way street. The United States is a great nation, but greatness is also measured by how we treat our partners at 2P. Ibrahim Traoré and his delegation arrived at the White House. Protocol was strictly followed, but the tension was palpable. Trump waited in the Oval Office, surrounded by his top aides. When Ibrahim entered, the two leaders greeted each other formally. "But the atmosphere was charged, Mr. President Trump," Ibrahim said, maintaining his composure. "Thank you for having me." Of course, Trump replied, gesturing for them to sit. "So what brings you here?" Ibrahim, the question was deliberately informal, almost condescending. Ibrahim was unfazed. "I came here because your words yesterday require a direct answer. You said I need to put myself in my place. I am here to clarify exactly where my place is." Trump leaned back in his chair, a wry smile on his face. "And where would that be, my place?" Ibrahim said, his voice gaining strength. "As the elected leader of a sovereign nation, my place is to defend the interests of 22 million. Burkina, my place is as an equal partner on the international stage." Trump's smile faded slightly. "Equal partner. Burkina Faso has the GDP of a mid-size American state, Mr. President." Ibrahim said calmly, "National dignity is not measured by GDP alone. If it were, only 5 countries in the world would be entitled to respect." The room grew tense. Aides on both sides exchanged nervous glances. Trump was clearly irritated, but he was also impressed by Ibrahim's calm. "You have guts, I'll give you that," Trump said. "But guts without power is just arrogance." Ibrahim smiled. "For the first time, Mr. President, with all due respect, power without wisdom is just brute force, and America has always been wiser than that." Trump was silent for a few seconds, processing Ibrahim's words. His aides seemed nervous, but the American president was known for respecting an undeterred opponent. "Okay, Ibrahim," Trump said, changing his tone slightly. "You have my attention, speak." Ibrahim leaned forward. "Mr. President, Burkina Faso is not an enemy of the United States. We are a country that grew 15% last year, that has effectively fought terrorism, that is building a solid democracy. Why treat us as an adversary?" Trump mused. "Because you have been getting very close to China and Russia lately." "And why is that?" Ibrahim asked. "Because when we needed partners, they offered us respect in addition to investment. The United States offered us only criticism and humiliating conditions." The sincerity in Ibrahim's voice was undeniable. Even Trump's aide seemed impressed by his candor. "Look," Trump said, "the United States has been helping Africa for decades." "Help," Ibrahim repeated, "is exactly the word that defines the problem. We don't want help. We want partnerships. We don't want handouts. We want fair trade. We don't want to be treated like children. We want to be respected like adults." Trump drummed his fingers on the table. It was clear that he was recalculating his position. "And what do you propose that we talk?" "As equals," Ibrahim said. "Burkina Faso has resources that the United States needs. We have a young, educated population. We have a strategic position in West. Africa, we can be valuable partners if we are treated with dignity. Anthony Blinken, who was present, whispered something in Trump's ear. The American president nodded slowly. Your proposal is interesting, Ibrahim, but how do I know? I can trust you, Ibrahim smiled. The same way I trust you through actions, not words. Trump stood and walked to the window of the Oval Office, looking out over the White House lawn. Ibrahim waited patiently, knowing that he was at a crucial point in the conversation. Trump said, turning to face Ibrahim. In my entire political career, few leaders have had the courage to come here and confront me directly. I did not come here to confront you, Mr. President, Ibrahim replied. I came here to propose a solution. Trump returned to his seat. I am listening. Ibrahim opened a folder he had brought. Burkina Faso is willing to offer the United States preferential access to our gold and manganese reserves. In return, we want American investment in our infrastructure and education on terms of mutual respect. The numbers in the proposal were impressive. Trump studied the documents quickly. His business experience helped him evaluate deals quickly. Are these numbers real, completely verifiable? Said Dr. Wedigo, speaking for the first time. Our mineral resources were reassessed by an independent American company last year. Trump glanced at his aides, who nodded quietly. The proposal was sound and profitable for both sides. What about China and Russia? Trump asked. They will continue to be our partners, Ibrahim said honestly, as will France, the United Kingdom, and others. Burkina Faso no longer accepts colonial exclusivity. We want to diversify our partnerships. Ibrahim's frankness clearly impressed Trump. You are different from other African leaders I have met, he admitted. What do you mean you didn't come here begging for help? You came here to propose business. Ibrahim smiled. Mr. President, my generation of African leaders understands that dignity and prosperity go hand in hand. We no longer accept a choice between them. Trump closed the briefcase and looked directly at Ibrahim. Okay, let's talk about this seriously. The meeting, which was scheduled to last an hour, stretched into 3. Trump had canceled other appointments, clearly interested in Ibrahim's proposal. Let me understand, Trump said. You are offering the United States what you offered China, but with better terms. In fact, Ibrahim said, we are offering even better terms. The United States has technology that China does not have, especially in the area of renewable energy. Fatimata Sawarago, Burkina Faso's economy minister, presented detailed charts. Mr. President Trump, our solar energy plan could make Burkina Faso an exporter of clean energy to the entire region. American technology would be essential. Trump was clearly interested. What about the costs? An initial investment of $8 billion over 5 years. Fatima replied, an estimated return of $25 billion over the next 10 years. Those are serious numbers, Trump murmured to Blinken. Ibrahim noticed the change in the mood. Mr. President, when you said I should put myself in my place, you may not have realized that my place is right here, negotiating as equals with world leaders. Trump laughed for the first time during the meeting. You're right, I underestimated you. A lot of people underestimate Africa, Ibrahim said, but we're changing that perception one deal at a time. The conversation continued, touching on regional security, counterterrorism, and technological development. Trump discovered that Ibrahim had a deep understanding of geopolitics and the global economy. How did you learn so much about international economics? Trump asked, genuinely curious. By studying, Mr. President. African leaders of my generation didn't come to power by accident. We prepared ourselves. Trump nodded, impressed. We have an agreement in principle. If you're willing to treat Burkina Faso as a respected partner, Ibrahim said, then yes. 2 hours later, something unthinkable happened. Trump and Ibrahim Traoré walked together toward the White House garden, where an impromptu press conference had been organized. The journalists were stunned. No one expected the meeting to end in cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, Trump began. I had a very productive conversation with President Ibrahim Traoré today, and I have to admit I was wrong about him. The silence in the garden was total. CNN's Sarah Johnson could not hide her surprise. President Traoré showed me that Burkina Faso is not just any African country. It is a potential partner for the United States, Trump continued. Sometimes great leaders have to admit when they are wrong. Ibrahim stepped up to the microphone. Thank you, Mr. President Trump. Today we proved that respectful dialogue can overcome any initial misunderstanding. "What kind of deal did you reach?" at Fox News reporter shouted. Trump smiled. "A deal that will benefit both countries. Burkina Faso will provide strategic resources, and the United States will invest in its infrastructure." "Everybody wins," Ibrahim added. "More important than the economic deal is the precedent we have set. Africa does not need charity. It needs respectful partnerships." The questions poured in President Trump. "How do you explain this quick change of position?" "Simple," Trump replied. "When someone presents me with compelling facts and thoughtful proposals, I listen." Ibrahim did just that. A reporter asked Ibrahim, "How does it feel to have educated the American president?" Ibrahim smiled diplomatically. "I did not educate anyone. I simply showed who we really are. Africa has much to offer when treated with dignity," Trump added, "and I learned an important lesson. Today, never underestimate a new generation African leader." 3 months later, the world had witnessed an extraordinary transformation. The meeting between Trump and Ibrahim Traoré became a case study in diplomacy schools around the world. In Ouagadougou, Ibrahim was in his office reviewing reports on the first American investments arriving in the country. "Who would have thought that Trump would become one of our greatest defenders?" said Musa Kabori, pointing to American newspaper articles praising the Burkina Faso model. "He respected our courage," replied Ibrahim deep down. "Trump has always admired people who stand up to him with intelligence and dignity." The results were impressive. Within 3 months, Burkina Faso had received $2 billion in American investment. 3 major U.S. technology companies had opened offices in Ouagadougou. Unemployment fell by 15% in Washington. Trump had become a public advocate for the new Africa. Ibrahim Traoré showed me that we have to treat Africa differently, he said in a speech to Congress, "not as a continent to be helped, but as a partner to be respected." The transformation in us Africa relations was dramatic. Other African leaders followed Ibrahim's example, adopting more assertive but diplomatic positions. Trade between the United States and Africa grew by 40% in 6 months. Kamala Harris, who had learned from her previous mistakes, became one of the main articulators of this new policy. "Ibrahim Traoré changed our perspective on African leadership," she admitted in an interview with CNN on a quiet evening in Ouagadougou. Ibrahim was having dinner with his family when his daughter asked, "Daddy, why was the American man mean to you?" Ibrahim smiled. "He wasn't mean, honey. He just didn't know us. Sometimes people are afraid of what they don't understand, and now he understands. Now he respects us, and that has made all the difference." Ibrahim Traoré's response had left America speechless, but more importantly, it had created a new model of diplomacy based on courage, dignity, and mutual respect.